Mega London everyone, and welcome back to some more Misty Mountains. I am Melbourne Kalan, and we are currently assaulting Lorraine. I would like to say that is a good summarization of it all. And I believe it are at an end turn immediately, so let's start with that. Now, first off, let me apologize because this video is going to be a few hours late. It should still come up, have had come up on Tuesday, but it will not have come up at 12 p.m. or 12 o'clock GMT +2, as I normally like to put out my videos, because I I did not find the time to record it yesterday. And therefore I'm recording it now on the morning of the 30th. Now it should be there should be no remarkable difference in it. The video should be as it would have been had I recorded it yesterday. It will just be a few hours late. So now you know that, and now you know why it did not come out at the normal time. Okay, with that out of the way, I shall furthermore say that I have given some thought into it, and I will indeed be doing the unit or new unit types in my next version 2.0 overview. And the way I'm thinking of doing that is that I'm going to do them faction-wise, or per faction rather. So I will start with the faction, probably start over here and then go or something like that. And this was me marking off the different factions on the faction loading screen, if that wasn't obvious. And yeah, I will just be showing off the different new units, or if there are change units for that one. So let's say we start with Eredluin, for example. I would then show the new units, always first from the version 2. The new units from version 2, and if there are significant differences in either stats or in look or something like that, I shall then either straight after having shown you that one unit jump to 1.2 and show you that unit as a quick comparison, and then immediately jump back to version 2.0 and keep going down the list of new units there. Or I could potentially do how would you say, the oh come on, I would do the losing words here. Oh come on. I would do all of the version 2.0 changed units for one faction first, so as I would show you all the new units for a new faction and all the changed units, and then I would potentially do a quick look into 1.2 and quickly skimp over all of the same units or the units they are replacing, or yeah, similar units in version 1.2. Now, of course, there are some completely new units which I will not be able to cover in the version 1.2 thing, because they're not there and they have not been changed from a version 1.2 unit, and therefore they will have no counterpart in version 2.0. If I however feel that they should have one, and that someone should be mentioned, I will mention it and do a quick comparison. I'm not yet certain as to whether or not I will be jumping back and forth between version 2.0 or version 1.2. Now, the jumping back and forth is going to require a lot more cutting up the video and me starting back up, and it will be probably a little bit more jarring. So that's actually a counter argument for why you would not do it that way, because it would indeed get quite clunky. And I would have to keep track of quite a few different video files, which I should be able to do, but I mean, there's always the risk of something going wrong. So that's the negatives and pros of that. Of course, the pro on that side is that then you will get an immediate response to as, oh, okay, this unit used to be look like that, or this unit used to be that bad or that good, and now they have stakes, and now they don't have stakes, and so on. You get the point. You see the pros with that. But, I mean, maybe the jarriness of the video would not countermand that pass, and it would not be worth it. I'm not certain yet. I am really not certain as to which one I should choose. So if you have any at all comments, I will probably start recording it tomorrow. Fingers crossed. And yeah, you need to be really quick on this. And I mean, I can't tell you to be quick on watching this inside of the video you should be watching. But if you have been quick to watch this, then you should be even quicker to give me a response, because I will be probably, hopefully, barring a act of Eru, that I will start recording tomorrow. To me, it makes really no difference as to which version of the videos I make, but I would maybe personally. I mean, I'm torn actually, because I don't know if the pro from having you see the version 2.0 and then immediately going to version 1.2, if that outweighs the hackiness or the jarriness of the video. I am not certain as if it does that. I mean, it might, but I'm personally actually not sure which one I should choose, were I to watch a video, which one I would prefer. I'm actually not sure. Though I do believe that the fewer amounts of video files I will need to keep a track of, and basically just the smaller jarriness of the video, or less jarriness, less jarry video of the first version 2.0, everything from version 2.0, and then jump to version 1.2 is going to be the better choice, because then you are going to get a unfeathered and unbroken, shall we say, delve into version 2.0, and that may be just better, because you don't break the, is it the verisimilitude? I think the verisimilitude, yeah, I think that's the correct English word, i.e. I don't break the illusion, and you get to be really immersed in the in version 2.0, and I think that might be better. So I think I'm going to do that, unless you have a really good counter argument, and in which case I will do the more jarring one. I would anyways record everything so that I start at 2.0, and then I went to a faction. I did a unit, I put a cut in the video, jumped to the next unit, recorded that one, jumped to the next one, and did as follows for all of the new units. And to me there would be really no difference as if I recorded all of them in a straight line, or if I recorded them chunk-wise. Because I would probably just be clicking to stop the recording and start recording again really, really quickly. I mean, that's probably how it would go. But yeah, of course there is the added benefit of having a much more segregated video, because if that were the case, as it actually was with the first chainlock, which you did not get to see, but there was actually a slightly different, the last half of the first video was actually different in the first draft, but they appeared, or a voice bug appeared, so I sounded really robotic for like half the video. And that was like maybe 7 of my chunks. I recorded them in chunks, which you may have noticed. And like 7 of those chunks were like corrupted by robot voice me. And yeah, I had to re-record them so that you wouldn't have to hear and listen to to my robot voice. And I think it came up much better the second time as well. And that was one of the key strengths with using the segregated video, because then you could actually go in and precision strike the one videos, or the few videos where actually there was a problem, and also if there was some kind of a problem, factual error or something inside one of those small or short videos, then it was much more easy to go and re-record that short segment, because it was only like 5 or 10 minutes, and you could easily re-record that, instead of having to do a whole 30 minutes thing again, and that I will tell you, is just draining because it's so boring to have to do the exact same thing again, and you have to try and remember exactly each what you said in the first one so you don't forget anything. For instance, I was completely wrapped up in it when I was recording that one. I had my list and I went through the list point by point and I recorded them all in succession. And then when I later tried to, or had to redo some of the videos, I really had to re-watch the video that I was about to redo like 3 times maybe, so I was sure that I got everything I said in that part because I couldn't not be sure that I had said some of the important parts in another piece of the video. So it was really draining. It was really not a fun thing to have to redo. But it was necessary, so I did it so that you could get a good impression of version 2.0. And that is a good, strong argument in my case, but only for me as a recorder, not for me as a content creator, I guess, to create many segregated small segments as opposed to one large one. I suppose I could still put in cuts, but I don't think that would be necessary, and I don't think that would be nice. That would basically just countermand the whole purpose of doing it in one single go, putting in cuts in it, that is. And I don't think that's worth it. So no. Now I've been arguing against myself here for the last, what, 15 minutes or so, whilst the battle has gone on, but then again we only have Dalian units, and they are only Dalian bad units, so they won't really do much anyways. So I don't need to focus too much on it. In any case, it's really enjoyable to argue with yourself when you are talking out loud. I almost always prefer talking out loud with myself than I do to just think in my mind and argue that way. For one thing, I use my hands every time I have tried to articulate and do something. You can obviously not see me using my hands like quite a lot, but I am gesticulating and doing quite a few things with them whilst recording. And when I need to get a point across or something, it's so much easier if you have your hands to show what you mean at the same time. You get my point. There's always also that joke that how do you silence an Italian? You tie his hands behind his back, because they flounder around the arms quite a bit. That may not be completely accurate, but I think it's quite nice, because I do find it much harder to actually speak if you do not have your hands to show things with. And it's just reactionary as well. I don't think about it, they just do stuff. I think it's really cool. And furthermore, speaking loudly to yourself, I mean, when people point that out, like for instance I sit at school in a library or in our study room or something, and I start talking to myself because I'm working my way through a rather long and complicated math problem, and then I like to talk to myself that I'm like, okay, so there's this, there's that, and that includes implicates that happens, and so on and so forth, right? So therefore it's much more easy if you do it out loud, because then you can remember that, hey, I said that a few seconds ago and not just I thought that. And then it's like imprinted in your ears. I mean, you get my point, maybe. And it's much more easier for me, at least, to go back and get that information and not forget it further down in the assignment or exercise, if you prefer. And yeah, and sometimes if I get a little bit too excited, which I do from time to time, I start going really high voiced, or get a really high volume in my voice, and then someone can be like, do you always speak to yourself like that, or something like that? One of my friends could say that, and I'm like, yeah, I do. That's the only way to get intelligent responses. That's usually my comeback to that. They usually don't ask much more after that, and it's a bit mean, isn't it? Because that implies that they may not be that intelligent because they're not being asked. I'm asking myself instead, but I think that's a brilliant comeback, and I'm not going to stop using it. I truly do think that is a brilliant comeback, because it's like, yeah, I'm just speaking to myself, I don't care. It's useful to me, so I'm going to do it, and I get intelligent responses that way. It's a little bit of a sass in there as well, I think. It's beautiful in my honest opinion. I do love speaking to myself. I do that. And not just because I get intelligence responses only from me, that's more of a joke answer really, but anyways, it's interesting. Because, as I say, if you speak loudly, or rather just speak, close to yourself rather than just think out your thoughts whilst working through an exercise, you're going to maybe be like, hey, he said that, or I said that a few seconds ago, and that makes sense over here later in the assignment, and then we can use that and spin around on that. And it's just something that works for me. It might not work for everyone, but it works for me, and therefore I keep speaking to myself when I do exercises, when I do stuff, basically. When I argue with myself, I usually argue out loud, because then you get to articulate properly and you get to do, I don't know, pose arguments against the opposing counsel. You might also argue that I am being very, very Gollum-y in that sense because I'm speaking with myself. And I mean, that's not an unfair comparison. Gollum does speak with himself, and I do also speak with myself, and I do also have one of the... Oh, I have the one ring on my keychain with the inscription. It's a little bit metallic ring, and it has the inscription in it, and it's on my keychain. And I mean, you could technically say that I'm a bit of a Gollum in that way. I also have a small Gollum figurine, or one of those minifigures, which you get from the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. I have one of those painted in in quite, shall I say, ghastly or dull grey colours, sitting right here beside me on my desk. And I'm really proud of that figurine, or mini. I'm really proud of how I painted that because it looks so dirty and it looks so underground. It looks so Gollum-y somehow, if that's even something you could say. And it's like, yeah, okay, I can be Gollum. I even sometimes speak like him. Like, I mean, that's also an interesting comeback when people claim that, hey, you're speaking to yourself. I'm like, yes, yes, precious. I speak it with myself. No, I do speak to yourself. No, stop speaking to yourself. Don't tell them anything. And I keep going like that. Bad example, but because there was no clear difference between them. And I also apologize if that became way too loud. But, I mean, it's fun to go completely crazy from time to time, just speak like Gollum is having a mental breakdown. Because you don't care about what anyone else thinks, you're just in the character, right? And you're just explaining how Gollum, or in a Gollum-y fashion, if you will. I don't know, I'm weird, I know that, but I enjoy doing that. And people know I do that, so they're not even that surprised when I start speaking as Gollum. They're more afraid that I'm having a, I don't know, what would they be? They're more afraid I'm having a mental breakdown or something when I start speaking on it. They did do that the first few times I did it. They're more used to it now, and they don't think of it as that crazy, if you will. Think of it as crazy if you want to, but I mean, I think it's hilarious. And also one of the most important things I've learned whilst being leaders on different camps and being swimming teacher and such things is that if you can't laugh at yourself, how is anyone else going to laugh at you? Right? If you want to be a fun leader at a camp and make sure that the children have a fun time, like for instance they have interesting activities and interesting games to play and so on, then the leaders, we used to do some different scenes for them. Like we used to play up different passages from different theatre passages, and we used to do them in our own different ways. And you need to be able to laugh to yourself because you are going to make a fool of yourself. But if you can't laugh at yourself, how is anyone else going to do it? Right? That's at least the motto I've been brought up with. So if you If you want someone else to laugh at you, or with you rather probably, then you need to be able to laugh at yourself and not take yourself too seriously. Because life's too short to take yourself seriously all the time, right? And I mean, uh, I'm a, I'm a fanatic. No, not a fanatic, but I can't think of a good word that's not profane to describe someone who's really passionate about something. So, I mean, fervent maybe. I don't know. But I do like role-playing games really, really a lot. And we have a group in where we play D&D 5th edition, for instance, and I'm the Dungeon Master, and I do so much enjoy playing up the different characters and different NPCs and give them different personalities. Like you could have the crazy alchemist who's selling books or something. Taking quite a lot of inspiration as well from Critical Role and the Dungeon Master. And it's just a blast being able to completely lose yourself in a character and not care what anyone thinks, because it's not you. It's not you. It's a character you're portraying, and it's a nice way to, shall we say, relax from the normal world. Basically, you get to lose yourself in a role playing. It's huge amounts of fun, and it's so relieving. And it's so relaxing somehow because you don't care. It's not you, it's a role. Of course, one could take that too long as well, or too far, because in our group there are people, or were people maybe, who think that because you're role playing, I mean, of course, you don't want to meta game, and everyone hates that word, but I mean, to some extent you need to do that. You actually need to respect the game that lies underneath a role-playing game, because you can't just play it as you would an exact character in that world, because you're still real people who are trying to have a bit of fun together with your mates, and you can't just, to that extent, engross yourself in the world that you would completely neglect the real people sitting around you around the table or in a room, which some people used to do. And I mean, if you do that, if you neglect or not the characters, but the players, the really humans, and you go so much into your own character that you forget that they are also there to have fun, you might go so far as to destroy or do something in the game which you think is, yeah, that's accurate for your character, and you may be right. It may be completely what your character would do. No question about it. But if you do that one thing, that's going to completely mess over someone of the other players' game. Like, for instance, you would choose to be a thief, and you would choose to... I actually can't think of anything, but you would choose to go and loot a house, for instance, and you would take up so much time looting that house maybe the other people can't get their time in the spotlight, or maybe one of the players in the game are completely against thievery because they're lawful good or something. I don't know, there's so many ways that if you're not careful and you don't respect the meta game underneath it, because it is there, let's face it, it is there, even though we don't want it to be. But if you don't respect it, as some people didn't do, then you're going to mess over the other people you're playing with, then you're going to mess over your mates and not their characters, their players. It's such a thing. So you can take it too far if you roleplay, but I mean, it's such a good distraction. And at the very least, if you're the Dungeon Master, then you're probably going to have some type of way to spin the way why a character works as he does or she does. And I mean, it's up to you to make the game feel realistic, so you can probably go out on a limb and do crazier things than the characters will be allowed to do. And I mean, that's fine, because you're probably going to go back to it and fix it later, or you're going to be able to explain it away because you're the dungeon master and you have reasons, hopefully, for everything you do. And therefore you still need to respect the players, right? But you don't need to do it to say the same extent as the other players, because you're not there to make their game easy. You're there to make them tell a story basically, but they can't do it without problems to overcome. And if you give them too many ways to complete those problems, or you give them too many clues, or you don't give them enough resistance, they're not going to feel as if they actually achieved something. If you get my point. And the whole point of it is that role-playing is fun, yes, but if you let it take you too far and you're playing a role-playing game with your mates and you're not respecting the metagame lying underneath it, even though you're not supposed to talk about it, like all the unwritten rules and such. Like, for instance, you don't mess over your friend's character just because it would be something your character would do. It's not an acceptable. It's not an acceptable justification. It's not. It is not a justifiable way of doing it. You cannot justify you as the player using your character to mess over another player's character and in extension or by extension mess over that player. It's not alright. You can't do that. You can't do that. It's not alright. So I mean there are rules of course to role-playing games, and they can be a ton of fun if you have good players. But you need to be able to respect the players, you need to be able to respect the game, you need to be able to know where to draw the line basically, because yes, the point of the game is to engross yourself in the fantasy and not really, and basically just forget about the real world. That's the point of it. That's my point of it. That's why I play role-playing games. But if you're playing it just to make your own character the best there ever was, or something, then you're probably and potentially going to mess over other people's characters on your way to that glory, and that's not alright. That's not alright. I can't do that. Can't do that. And apparently I don't get aid here. Oh well. You'll get 2 battles here whilst I ramble on a little bit more. Why did I bring this up anyways? I had a point with it. Yes, I had a point with Gollum. Yes. I engross myself in that character, and I always almost engross myself in a character when I play a game or when I mean, it's boring. Life is so boring if you play it as yourself, as a normal, quote-unquote, human all the time, and I find it so incredibly boring. Whenever you play as a human, either in real life, well, you play a human in real life, but whenever you play a human in a fantasy game, I find that incredibly boring. Why would you do that? You can do it, but why would you? And I might get crucified for that statement. So engross yourself in your character, basically. It's so much more fun. Like, for instance, when we're playing Guild Wars 2, I play as a Sylvari because they were the closest to an elf I could find. There are no elves in Guild Wars, and that's bad and sad because elves are awesome elf power. But Sylvari were the closest ones, 3 people, right? So naturally, because they are 3 people and they look like, I don't know, apparently vegetables and stuff, people think that they're much less, well, I don't know, they're probably messing with me, but it's still there. They're apparently considered a little bit more of a joke race because they are living and talking trees. And that's apparently a nonsense thing. I mean, dryads are not something to laugh at in Skyrim. They do quite a bit of damage to you if you're not careful. So, I mean, the Sylvari are basically those. Some claim that the Sylvari are too girlish, but I don't care. I always play a girl in multiplayer games anyways. I mean, I don't care. It's a role-playing game. You can embody a role without actually having... You may just want to play that role. I mean, it's an escape from reality. If you are going to do exactly the same thing in the escape as you do, if you understand me, you're going to do exactly the same thing in the escape as you do in real life, then what's the point of it? What's the point of the fantasy if you can't really engross yourself in it? Right, back to the point. So, playing as the Sylvari, the people like to make fun of it because they look like and they are talking trees, right? So that's apparently very, very funny. So we have quite a bit of rivalry going on between the different races in our guild, where with Silvaria being mocked at for being walking, talking cabbages and vegetables, right? So I mean that's it's not an unfair point to say. I just think they're wrong because the Silvari are very dangerous and so on. Anyways, uh, so I think that, and then those people who think that the Silvari are a joke race, they are usually, or there's especially one who's a char, those big cat people, who do nothing else than play with yarns, char their lands, and burn down every single thing they build, and destroy the land. Such an ugly homeworld as well. He's on the opposing side and he gets really defensive of the Char whenever we try to point out that hey, you actually burn down your own people's places and so on, and it rams along from there. Then of course we have the Azurians, the short, intelligent, gnomish people. And I mean we have especially one person who is very, very fervently in the Azura camp. Nothing wrong with that. I have nothing against the Azurians, really. But whenever I get into the Silvaria character, it's like, yeah, we are in, was it Tyria maybe that it's called? You're in the character and you need to embody it and you need to defend your own race, right? Like for instance, when you're playing this game, if you're not playing the elves, which I'm not, and the elves are my clearly most favorite race. I still fight against them, and I still roleplay as I am sort of an orc. I'm not going to go completely orc. Never going completely orc, but I know I need to kill elves. I don't want to kill elves, but it's part of it, right? So in the same vein, in Guild Wars 2, for instance, now everyone is really, really engrossed with their character, and I think that is fan-freaking-tastic because you get so much more enjoyment out of a game if you're inside the character and you forget for a moment that there are people on the other side of the monitor. Now, you should of course not forget that there are people on the other side of the monitor completely. Same way as you should not forget that there are real players behind the characters in D&D, for instance. But by forgetting for a little moment that there are real people on the other side of the monitor, you can really just engage with the character inside the game and you can really mock them for being that one race that always burns down their homelands and can't do anything well. Or they are the Azurians who just build a lot of things and then they are very surprised when those things go sentient and attack them, or when someone harvests stuff and it goes crazy. Azurians are clearly the most evil race anyways, but anyways, just intelligent gibberish. And the humans are, well, they're just warmongers anyways, and cowards. Not like the fantastic Silvaria race, right? So, I mean, it's a fantastic release, and that's why I enjoyed so much because I've never actually really gotten into a guild or in the same way as I have with this guild. And it's such a different thing when you get to play with people you've actually spoken with before, and they're so different from so many parts of the world. And they are engaging with their characters. It's such a fantastic feeling. Such a fantastic feeling. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, really. I find it immensely satisfying when you have an argument inside the game and then you prove them wrong because they have claimed that the Silvari can't do that, and then you just prove that, aha, I did it first and I'm the best at this, and they can be like, yes, my character is the best one, or I am the best one, and it's crazy because you embody that character right inside the game. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And especially when you're on voice chat with so many of them. When we had, I don't know how many we had, but maybe 10 to 15 people in voice chat yesterday. And we're just like, we were all engaging with our characters and speaking in character. Of course, there were always this like, okay, where are you in the world? How are we going to complete this map? Or how are we going to do that quest or something like that? But as part of it, you need to accept that you can't 100% engrossed in your character. There is always going to be the underlying meta plane, and you are always going to be a human on the other side of a computer screen. But for the time that you can forget that, and for the moment when you can embody your character completely, it is such a great release and such a great way to remove yourself from the real world, basically. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that that is a thing which we can do. And I also think that role-playing is a beautiful thing because it allows you to basically put off your thinking brain and just go for it in a fantasy world. Such a beautiful thing. Give you the release in a fantasy world which you can't get in the normal world, for instance. Like, you may want to go fight dragons, but there are no dragons, so you can't fight dragons. And therefore you need to go into a fantasy world to do that. And if you don't have people living close by you who are interested in playing role-playing games, then you might be out of luck, but there are almost always going to be some kind of MMO who's going to be fun for you to play, and you're going to be able to find a group in it, and you're going to be able to engage with them. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that the internet exists to allow that. Because if you would have told me where the road which I started upon in August 2016, and the road basically being I found a YouTuber from another YouTuber, actually it was from Sapphire Phoenix, who were playing a Divide and Conquer campaign of Dol Amra, and he offhandedly mentioned that the mod leader for Divide and Conquer was making faction overview videos for said game, and that he had just watched the Dol Amrothian one. I was like, hey, that sounds interesting. I want to see more about these factions, right? So I went to watch that, and then I was completely caught up in it, in the mod leader's channel, and I just stuck around there, listened whilst he was out of the country and flying around the world, still uploading videos, or had still uploaded videos which you can watch while he was running around in China or something. And after that, when he was back, he started doing more and more things, and he apparently got engrossed in Age of Empires, and from there he managed to engage some of his viewers with a Steam group and got to playing Age of Empires online with them, and from there it just evolved and continued forward into a Discord group. And when in the Discord group, someone decided, I think it went from ESO, actually, from wanting to try ESO to re-engaging the love for Guild Wars 2, and after that just engaging the people in the Discord server basically, and just running for it. And it's crazy, really, the road it's gone from. If you think of where it started, for me anyway, I'm rambling, and I know you may have no interest whatsoever in this, but I think it's fantastic to reminisce about this. So, if you'd have told me that this is where I would have ended up after I had watched a Sapphire Phoenix video and gone from that to faction overview videos for the mod leader, to a Steam group in which we played almost exclusively Age of Empires, to a Discord group in which there are a multitude of different games being played, I would have said, no, you're joshing me. That's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. Not in the span of maybe 6 months, 7 months. There's no way that's going to happen. You're joking, you're joshing me. There's no way that's going to happen, right? And with the answers in hand, you can see that it's a weird road, and everyone who's been on it, everyone in Discord and Steam group, well, they were definitely needed, because without them we may never have ended up where we did end up. Because some of the people are really engrossed in the multiplayer scene and had just come out of the woodwork to join in that discussion, and they are really, really knowledgeable and really, really helpful in that. And had the Discord never evolved in such a way as it did, we may never have seen them. And I think it's a beautiful thing that after you've been inside of a living organism, which I basically think this Steam community thing is, you can reminisce and say, where did it actually start? And for me, it was from a British YouTuber who offhandedly mentioned a faction overview video from the mod leader, and I got caught up in it. And then it just ran from that. I think that's such an interesting start to it all. I just think that's so interesting. And you may not think it's interesting to listen to me ramble about basically anything but Third Age for this whole time. And I appreciate that. You may not be interested, but I think it is fan-freaking-tastic. And I just think it's such a beautiful journey to think about, really. You may have no interest whatsoever, that's fair. I know I was rambling on for really a long time. And I was mostly rambling on of things which either you are in the Steam group already and came through that here, or you're not in it and you've just basically listened to me ramble on about role-playing for 30-ish minutes, maybe 40-ish minutes even. I'm not entirely certain when I started recording. And you just witnessed 2 battles in Dane's Hall where we fought back the rubble, which was the Dalians. Because basically they had nothing to threaten me with. Yeah. You may or may not have found that fascinating. I do hope you found that fascinating, because I most certainly found it very enjoyable to speak about role-playing games and those things which I'm passionate about, which is role-playing games. And I think it was a fantastic thing to be able to just speak to it in here in a video and be able to upload it and know that someone will probably and hopefully actually watch it, and maybe they will take something away from it, and maybe I will actually have helped someone realize something about their own life or something. I mean, it's probably crazy to think that, but you never know. The internet is a wonderful place if you go to the right places and behave properly, and can be a dreadful place to enter if you're, yeah, we shall not go into that, but if you behave on the internet, then the internet or the people behind the internet will probably be kind back, which is what happened to me. And I mean, it's not impossible to happen to anyone, really. So that's me reminiscing and lacklusterly, basically, almost playing the game. I noticed there was an invasion called against Thranduil's Halls as well. So I may have to join that so I don't lose favor. I'm actually quite high. But we need to go for Thranduil's Hall, I think, which it was an invasion, wasn't it? Yeah, it's an invasion. We have 6 turns to join it though, and we are still trying to capture Anon and Rod here. 1 more turn and they will be eradicated. Prince Eladan. Alright. But yes, I do hope you found something interesting in my ramble, and I do hope you take something away from it, if nothing more than Dalian infantry and militia level stuff are really bad at fighting, and maybe you just took away that I am crazy because I speak to myself and I like to, and I have a golem figurine standing next to me. Maybe you took away from it that role-playing is an interesting exercise and you would like to try it, or maybe you just took away something else. I cannot possibly know unless you tell me, so I do implore you to please do tell me if you took anything away from it, and I would happily read that, because I think it was a really interesting discussion, this one, to ramble on about. And likewise, if you did not find it enjoyable, please let me know and I shall try to avoid speaking incomplete, incoherent things and just basically what comes into the top of my head. And I will try to focus a little bit more on the game in the next one. But please let me know. If I do not get feedback, I cannot possibly know what we want to see, right? So feedback is completely necessary for it to evolve. Also, final apology for this one to arrive a little bit late. But now that you have watched it, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in my next video tomorrow, actually. No, 2 days from now, on Thursday. Thank you for watching, and I will see you then. Bye.